Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Peter Bedard, and he's going to tell us about his near-death experience. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Peggy. I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
It's so funny when I introduce us like that because we've been chatting for half hour.
Absolutely. And I love your channel. I absolutely went and subscribed. So if there's anybody listening right now, you guys need to go subscribe, hit the like button, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you say that, but
I
subscribe
don't.
and
I
like.
never do. I tell you, I think it's tacky and it really irritates you when
Oh,
I hear other people's. No, you saying it's fine because it's not me. But whenever
okay.
I just did it again today, I heard somebody say subscribe and like, oh my God. Like, to me,
Oh,
it's like taking a little can begging for coins. That's what it feels
I get you. I think it's good business practice. I really do,
like.
because you're taking time to share my story, your story, people's stories of healing, right? And you're giving content to people for free. And one of the ways they can pay it forward or support you is by doing something so simple as subscribing and like. So I'm going to encourage you to change that story and start asking people, actually,
Start subscribing. I'll
exactly,
choke you.
exactly. You know, the etymology, I love this word. So the etymology of the word ask is to command, right? That's the origin of the word to ask, right? So you can command your angels, you can command your spirit guides, you can command your ancestors, your co-creative source, right? Come on, guys, let's make this together, right? Go do this. I want fill in the blank and let's go make it happen, right? Well, if you could do that to your spiritual world, right? Why can't you do that to those who are listening? Why can't you command? I command you now.
I figure they'll do what they want.
Exactly.
Okay, well, let's get into it. So, start wherever you like. Okay.
Sure. Okay, so my NDE. I'm a therapist, so I have lots of different things, and my NDE actually set me on that healing journey. It was many years ago, and this will be my 40th anniversary of my near-death experience. I
Wow.
didn't talk about it for at least the first 15 years. I didn't bring it up. I didn't
You know
talk
what?
about it.
I'm 2 years
This was
behind
many years
you.
ago.
Mine was 86.
Okay. Well, mine was 84 right there, right? And so I grew up in a very conservative household, and this was not something that you brought up.
Actually,
So
I beat you
I,
because my first was in 1966.
oh yeah, you totally beat me there. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So I was just a kid. I was almost 18, and it was it was my senior year, and it was the fall of my senior year, going into winter. It was October, and I was doing a show. I was a theater kid, and I wanted to do this experience because my grandfather, when he was young, he played the banjo. And when he was young, every now and then he would fill in at the local vaudeville show. So if they needed a banjo player, it wasn't a regular all the time thing, but sometimes he would. And there would be stories about him and vaudeville and playing the banjo and all that type of stuff. And I just thought it was so cool when a local vaudeville theater in my town decided to put on a show and they were auditioning. And I got it. I was like, I got to do this. Right. So I actually went and auditioned. I was 17. At that time, drinking age was 18. I wasn't even allowed to be in the theater.
Was
I
you
could be on
playing
the
banjo
stage.
too?
Pardon me?
Did you play the banjo too?
No, I didn't,
Oh,
but I got to play the horse's ass.
you mean like you got
Literally.
to be an actor?
I got to be an actor. I got to be in the show. And I literally was in a horse costume. It was vaudeville. So
That
it was
sounds
like
so
the evil
fun.
villain, right? Where you booed and hissed at the evil villain. And you had the red hot mama with the corset and the boobs out, all that kind of sexy stuff, all that, right? It was so fun. And I literally got to play the horse's ass. I was the back end of the horse. So so it was a really exciting experience for me. I mean, I'm in high school, I'm getting paid to do performance work. It's a fun throw popcorn, boo and hiss type of experience. But I was a good boy. So I was the youngest in my family, and my brother was always messing up. And I learned watching that relationship to do the opposite. And I did what my parents told me to do, and they were having a party. The show was having a party the opening night weekend, opening night party. And my parents said I couldn't go. And I was really angry. I
Oh,
was pissed. I was like, I'm the good boy. I do what you tell me. I don't sneak out the window. I'm not doing all those types of things. And you don't trust me to go to this party. I was really angry, but I was being the good boy and I was riding my bike home. I had a little Moto Pecan, which is like an early moped. And I'm zooming along the road. I got my helmet on. I'm on the bike. I'm driving down the street. And again, I'm very angry. I'm driving into the suburbs, and so it's a very quiet night. It was October. There was a beautiful moon. Had that end of summer, the warm days and cool nights. It was just beautiful. And I remember being conscious of that. And a car came up behind me as I was pulling into a curve. And in that curve, there was a parked semi truck. And I couldn't get around the truck. And the car came up, pushed my tires. Now, this is a 2-lane road, 4 lanes, two in each direction, right? And for whatever reason, the car was driving on the side of the road next to me. It pushed the back of my tires and pushed my bike. It catapulted my bike and me on the bike into the back of the parked semi truck.
oh,
Now, I jumped out of my body and I got to watch the entire experience, which was a blessing to not have to go through all that pain, right? Of being slammed into the semi truck. My bike and my body slammed into the semi truck, bounced off the truck as the car was driving away. And my body and the bike was out in the middle of the street. It bounced into the second lane, right? It was probably going around 22 miles an hour or something like that. And to hit a brick wall or a steel semi truck, that's a pretty significant speed. And I watched everything and I was so calm. The anger was gone. I just was recognizing what a beautiful night and the moon and gosh, how wonderful it was while my body was out there in the middle of the street. And I was kind of floating above the experience. So I could see the top of the semi truck. I was looking down on my bike and my body was pretty messed up. It was contorted underneath me. And there was just such a sense of peace. And as I was just curious, there was a lot of curiosity in my whole experience. Wow, this is interesting. I don't have any pain. There's my body. What happens next? What do we do here? Right?
that's how my
And
five-year-old
then,
drowning was. It's like, oh, okay,
yeah,
cool.
okay, yeah. There was like no judgment, no
Yeah.
no worry, no fear. It was really a beautiful experience. And then I was going down the tunnel. I did the proverbial tunnel. I know not everybody does the tunnel. I did the tunnel. And the tunnel for me has always had a very special experience because I was shooting through the tunnel. It was like a tube and it was corkscrewing. It wasn't just spinning stagnant, like around and around. It was spinning in a corkscrew, right? Going closer and closer and closer, right? Like this experience of moving through space, not stuck in space, just doing this. It was going someplace. And years later, I saw a diagram, an illustration of animated illustration of how our Milky Way galaxy is moving through time and space. And it's corkscrewing. The
Oh,
sun is shooting out in front of us, and all the planets, yeah, they're circling, but they're circling in behind it. Like they're going around it, but they're tailing the sun. The sun's like a giant meteor shooting through space, and all the planets are kind of following it as they move through space, right? And it's this
mhm.
corkscrew fashion. And when I saw that, there was something significant to me. I still haven't figured out what it was, but that feeling of recognition, that feeling of, oh, that's right. That feeling was, I don't know how to describe it more than that, but I'm shooting down this tube. I'm corkscrewing through it. It's this beautiful tube of energy with like, it's white, but it's a prism of white. Like when you jump it, if you could imagine thinking about or imagining jumping into a prism, right? Those glass, like a little pyramid prism or something like that. And the light hits it and it refracts all the colors. That's the experience of being in this tube and on the other side. So I get to the other side. And again, my heart is so excited. There's this thrill, this wonderful experience. And I land on the other side, whatever that is. And I'm aware that there's a floor, but I can't see a floor. Like there's the energy of a floor. I feel like I'm standing. I'm not falling. I'm not dropping through space, but I can't really see a floor. And I'm aware that I'm in a defined space, but I don't see walls. Everything is just this brilliant prism of light, chromatic light, color. And colors like I don't think our human eyes can register. Like I cannot describe the colors that are on the other side. And yet everything is in this brilliant white light of energy. So I'm walking around this space. I'm so curious. I feel so good in my body. My body just feels full of energy and full of life, being dead, right? It's amazing. So I'm in that place. I'm wondering, I'm walking around and I start to think, well, where is everybody? I thought when you died, like I had an idea of what death was going to be
That's what
like,
I
right?
thought too. Where is
Yeah,
everybody? Why am I alone?
exactly. I was thinking, where's my dead dog? I want to see my dog. My dog's supposed to be greeting me, right? Where's my great grandmother? I always wanted to meet her. I don't know why. I've never met the woman. I always wanted to meet my great grandmother. Where is she? Right. And I'm not upset. There's just this absolute curiosity, right? So there's a consciousness that's there. I'm walking around this space that I can't define, that seems like going on forever. I turn around and there's this person in front of me and he's like a hologram. I like to describe it using Star Wars pop culture movies, right? You remember when Obi-Wan Kenobi or Leia, Princess Leia, they're the hologram, like R2D2 is projecting the hologram, and that they start talking to you, right? Princess Leia or Obi-Wan, whatever. And they're there, but they're not. They're pure energy, right? But I can see the clothing that this person is wearing, and I'm curious about the clothing and the fabric, and I can see such detail, and yet it's pure light, right? And when I turn around and see this person, there's a confusion as to who are you? I don't know who you are. But at the same time, I feel like my chest has just been splayed open, like it's just been ripped open. And this ecstatic pain is happening. And I feel this absolute love, like my heart is bursting out of my chest. And it literally physically feels like this explosive energy going towards this person that at the same time, I'm like, who are you? But I love you. But who are you? Right? This tremendous love.
I'm getting a visual of the Grinch when his heart explodes.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great, yeah, that's absolutely it, right? This exploding heart. Absolutely. And it's a person that I can only describe as looking like Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu is like it means in that language, it means old man, wise old man,
Oh,
right? And he's Asian, some sort, and he has a Fu Manchu mustache that goes into a long beard, right? This long, wispy beard. And his suit, I think in my head, it just pops into my head. It's like I'm not even thinking. It's the information kind of pops into my head. And I hear the information, the words say Hong Kong 1890. I'm like, I don't know what that means. But his suit, like as I looked it up later, was a real heavy tweed. It was a real heavy weave, and it looked like what somebody would be wearing in Hong Kong in the 1890s. Like, bizarre. Like,
oh.
he had a hat on, and it was very dapper. And at the same time, I'm thinking I have a bit of a sassy sense of humor, and I'm thinking, so is God a old Chinese man? And I'm obviously white, and I'm like, this isn't one of my ancestors. Like, my brain is thinking so many things. Maybe it is one of my ancestors. I don't know. My brain is thinking so many things all at the same time. None of it prejudicial, all of it just pure curiosity, right? I'm feeling that love as I turn to him. And he says, you're not supposed to be here. And I just kind of say, well, I am.
You went to Chinese heaven. Get out.
And I'm not going back. I was very clear. I was very clear that I did not want to go back. Right.
Okay.
As a kid I didn't feel accepted. I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel supported. I was the Billy Elliot story. I don't know if you know that old movie. I have lots of pop culture reservation, uh, recognitions. So Billy Elliot is a story of a little boy that just wants to be a dancer, and his dad is like a rough and tumble bar beat up guy. Like, he's that guy. You don't if you say anything to him, he's just gonna punch you in the face, right? Blue collar type of guy. And there's little Billy that just wants to be a dancer,
Going to make a
right?
man out of
That
you.
exactly. That was me, right? I was that kid. And so I did not want to go back. I was very excited to no longer be in that body and to be this energetic body, which by the way looked exactly the same as my body did then. Like, there was no difference. My body, in my experience, looked exactly the same. The form was exactly the same. I was just energy, right? Again, that holograph or whatever it was.
Okay.
So I say that to him. He says, "You're not supposed to be there." And he says, "You have to go. It's not your time." And I flipped him off.
Oh,
I
you did?
did. I like to say that I don't know if he was God, but I like to say I
That's
told
funny.
God to F off.
I was basically, hell no, I won't go, being like, you can't make me go to heaven. I go back, but you flipped him off.
Exactly. I love that. We share that in common. I just flipped him off as part of it.
Maybe that's why we were alone. We don't play well with
Right?
others or something.
Don't play well. Yeah. So in that experience, all of the anger that I had when I was driving back from the show, right? All that anger of that feeling of being rejected, that all of that experience came back to me. And in that flash of a moment, I was no longer there. And I was back, not in my body, but I was back at the scene of the accident. Now, before we leave the whole other side story, I want to say to people, I do public speaking and stuff like that. And sometimes I start my talks by saying, "Hey, I want you guys to all know that I died. Somebody murdered me. I obviously came back. And the best thing that ever happened to me was that experience. The best thing that ever happened in my entire life up until now, even the age I'm at now, was that somebody killed me and I got to go the other side and I got to experience that pure joy, that bliss, that love, that beyond anything we can comprehend right now experience. It is the most amazing, incredible thing. And I encourage everyone to look forward to their death. I encourage everyone to actually say, I'm going to live my life fully, not afraid of dying, taking chances, going out there, exploring the world without any fear of that happening. Because on the other side, in my experience at least, you can't get it wrong. You can't get it
I
wrong.
love that
It
you
is pure
say
love.
that, that you look forward to it, but live life fully. It's not like
Absolutely.
sit here and be depressed because you want to be there, but you're stuck here. No.
No, not at all. It's not about suicide. It's not about ending my life, right? It's about knowing that when that time comes, I'm going to embrace it to the fullest. I'm going to be like, yeah, I am ready.
Now, I heard you say the word murdered and killed. Is that how you felt, that this car murdered you?
Yes, absolutely. So to this day, there's no ambulance report. There's no police report. Somehow they came, they got me to the hospital, but there's no report of it. And there's some part of my subconscious I've not been able to get to that I believe I know who that person was. And there's no reason they would be driving in the side by the curb. There's no reason for them to be driving in that
You
place.
think it was intentional?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. There's
Oh,
no reason. It felt intentional in the moment, right? I remember looking in my rear view mirrors. I remember seeing the car. I remember seeing a male in the driver's seat. I remember having some glimmer of recognition, but not being able to place the face. And I remember trying to sneak between them and the semi truck, right? Trying to move around the semi truck. And it's a 2-lane, 4-lane road. Why were they driving over on that far side of the road? And they had to almost hit the semi truck in order for that to happen. Like, they had to come super close to clipping that corner of that truck, right? It's just the feeling that I have. And again, I could be wrong. There's no evidence, They've never found the person. No one's ever come forward and confessed, or no one's ever come forward and said that they saw it happen. It's just a heart feeling that someone purposely, right? And maybe it was a drunk driver. Maybe they were drunk and it wasn't consciously done on purpose and it was just done in that way. But there's something about it that feels purposeful. I was coming out as a gay boy in a town that was homophobic. You know, most towns were, especially back in the 80s, 70s and 80s. And that wasn't okay, right? And so I do feel that someone did this experience to me. And that's part of my work. That's part of my healing, to actually forgive that. How do you forgive when, the person that took your life? And it's been a big part of my healing process,
Maybe
right?
somebody
How to
saw you
forgive.
in the play, but anybody, I mean, you
Maybe.
was in a costume, but
Yeah,
somebody knew you were having a good time.
maybe.
That
I
tends
mean,
to
I
really
was a
irritate
popular
some
kid.
people. If
Say that again.
that really tends to irritate some people if they
It
don't
does.
like you for whatever reason and they see you having a really good time anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know, just
Yeah.
guessing, why somebody would
Yeah.
hurt you.
There's a saying in AA, in the 12-step programs, that says, we may not know you, but we love you. Right. And I love that. I really resonate with that. We may not know you. And I like to say, we still choose to love you. Right. We love you anyway. Right. And if I can love someone and that program can love people who are suffering and in pain, right? If that can be a consciousness in there, then why can't, right? Why can't somebody hate me without knowing me? There's lots of evidence, lots of people that hate for no reason, right? They hate a color or a race, they hate a people or a community or whatever it is. And they don't really have any reason to. Maybe they were taught something, maybe they were told something. But if someone can hate for apparently no reason, then why can't I love? And that's part of my healing practice.
Identify with that because I have felt hated my entire life.
Yeah.
It comes out of nowhere, nowhere. And then hear all these stories. They're like, you are this, you are that. I'm like, you don't even know me. My life's an open book. You wouldn't know anything. Just ask me. But
Yeah.
I don't know who you're talking about. You created a monster in your
Yeah.
imagination.
They make up stories, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as a gay kid, it was as a gay man, I still go places and it's a little scary. I've had shotguns pointed at me. I've had a rifle in my face. I've had men surround me and say they were going to kill me. I've had handguns pointed at me. I've had knives pointed at me. I've had bottles thrown at me. And these people obviously hate me, although I don't know them. I haven't knowingly met them, right? And yet I'm the focus. Some people say gay is an interesting thing because you can hide it. Well, I've never been the one who can hide it. Right? I got a pink triangle flashing above my head. Right there. So I love that. I'm so grateful that that's been part of my life lesson, that I get to be that example of choosing love. I literally get to be that, even though there's been all that hate thrown in my way. I'm not going to participate in that. And maybe that was some of the energy I got from the other side. Maybe that pure love that I know is there for us, when we leave this physical plane, that love is really that statement, as trite as it might be, love is all there is absolutely true in my experience. Absolutely true. Even when hate and violence is being shown to me. So I try to live my life like that every day.
Are you like this all the time? Are you just happy like this all? My husband's that way.
I have my moments. I come from a family that has depression that runs into the family. I have experiences like that. And a lot of those experiences make me stronger in my faith, it makes me stronger in loving more. It makes me stronger when I go and I'll have a sad time and it's okay. But I generally am what you see right now is
Okay.
basically what
I see your book behind you about anxiety, and I know
yeah.
from like your website, there's some anxiety stuff. Was
Mhm.
that a problem when you had the problem with drinking or?
Oh yeah. Oh, so I didn't have a problem drinking.
Okay.
For me, the 12-step programs is CODA or Al Anon, right? The friends and
Oh,
family members, right?
gotcha.
I
Yeah, I
would
assumed
attract people.
when you said
I
AA.
would
Like, okay.
exactly. Yeah,
You didn't
yeah,
seem like that type, but you said it, so okay.
yeah. I think those programs have saved my life. So when I came back, so to finish up my NDE story, I remember seeing my body. Right, I'm back. I told the
Okay.
universe, God, however you want to define it, to flip. I flipped it off, them off, and I came back. I'm not in my body. I'm hovering above my body, and I see an ambulance pull up. So some time had gone by. I'm, the whoever found me had to call it in. Then they had to get the ambulance there. I'm saying it was at least 20 minutes that I was officially dead. I don't know. It was again in the middle of the street. The ambulance came. They pulled up. I saw the two guys get out of the ambulance. I remember one was African American and a big man, and he's the one that went straight to me. The other guy was pulling out the bed, the gurney, I think they call it, was pulling it out of the back. That man scouts like stoops down on top of me, and his body is over me. I'm watching this, right? And he's looking for a pulse. I think he's looking for breathing, that type of thing. Uh, and all of a sudden, I jump back into my body, and I open my eyes, and I tell him to take me to where my hospital was, the medical program I had, insurance I had. I say, take me there, and when I do that, he like jumps like Tigger, Tigger, like Winnie the Pooh
No.
Tigger. There's that boing kind of boing kind of experience. This big man is on top of me, and his whole body. I must have scared the crap out of him, which I don't know why I think that's funny. He just jumps like that. He comes out. I am back out of my body, and I watched the entire thing. I watched them put me on the gurney. I watched them put the gurney into the truck. I watched them close the door, and I watched them drive away. And I'm thinking to myself, again, this state of curiosity. I'm thinking to myself, huh, I wonder if this is how ghosts are created. Because I'm not jumping back in that body. I had made up my mind. I'm not going back in that body. My legs were twisted. My body was broken. I had all kinds of injuries. I was dead set. I am dead. It's kind of funny. I was set that I was not going back into that body. Some time went by. I don't know how much time, but all of a sudden, my next conscious experience, I don't know what was going on in that time between the ambulance driving away and my waking up in the hospital, opening my eyes, seeing that ugly drop white ceiling, and being aware that it's not the same white. I'm not in heaven. I'm not on the other side. Wherever I was, I'm not there. And I'm back in this physical form, and I'm back in my body. And again, I was pissed, right? I had shattered my left knee. It was shattered into little tiny bits. I had cracked my wrist open, split my wrist open. I lost all the nerves in my hand. I had nerve damage in my dominant hand, and I cracked 5 vertebrae. And I had undiagnosed brain damage. That at the time, the doctors didn't even think to test me for brain damage, and it was bad. And so I came back. I was angry. I was in pain. I had to learn how to walk again. From that moment, I had fibromyalgia and arthritis, and I developed asthma and bronchitis. I had sciatica. My white blood cells were attacking my red blood cells. My hemoglobin started to split and shut down my organs. I had 4 close to death experiences. I like to say that they're close to death experiences because I could have chosen to leave. I was so sick. I came so close to dying again that I decided not to. It was a conscious decision. They literally said, nope, not doing it, not time. And I stayed. And there's an interesting thing that you may have, because you had an early near death experience. There's a statistic I've seen of people that die before we're like 21, before 18. Mine was just a few months, but it applies to me in that we often will set ourselves up to die again. We will often, like, it's like a kid in the candy shop. I want to go back. That place was so amazing. It was so beautiful. It was so incredible. It was so loving that there's this unconscious desire, and we set situations up where we could possibly leave, right? Check out, die. And each of those times, even though I was drawing closer and closer, when it came to the moment, I was like, No, I still have stuff to do. I'm
Were
gonna
these in the
stay.
hospital right after the accident?
No, these are
Oh,
over a few years. These were
okay.
like a couple, many years after, where I would just come really close. I would have some experience where one time I dehydrated so severely. I was living in Mexico. We finally got in touch with the doctor, got the doctor, and the doctor's like, if you literally, if you would have been here a few minutes later, your vitals were so disturbing that I don't think I could have brought you back. Right? There's one of those times where, thankfully, for medical intervention, right, they were able to intervene in time, and I didn't die, but I was right on the edge of it, right? And that happened quite a few times over the years. It hasn't happened since I learned to accept and learn to love the fact that I'm still here. I didn't want to be here for many years. Like, I did not want to be in this body, and to have to deal with it. My happiness as a kid was as a performer. I had gotten scholarships to be a dancer, and life in every other place was scary and not very happy, right? Life in the dance studio was where I felt safe. It was where I felt like I could be me and be my true self, and it was where I felt like I could excel and I had a purpose for being, right? I was blessed to have that type of body type, right? There's a football player body type, there's a basketball player body type. Well, I have the ballet dancer body type. I was long and lean and strong, and I could do that. And that being taken away from me was devastating. It took me years to be able to get over that. And who am I? What am I supposed to do? What's my life purpose? I have no idea. It took years to come back to that place.
So did that accident at 18, you already had that need to, and you was a dancer and now you couldn't be?
Exactly.
Or, okay.
Yeah. I was a dancer as a child. So I
Okay.
was discovered, right? So quote unquote discovered. I was given scholarships and stuff like that,
Okay.
and studio apprentices. So I got to be that dancer. And and I was just really starting to excel. And then having that taken away was devastating. Yeah. I feel like, as a therapist now, I work with people like a professional football player, right? These guys come in and I really identify with them, even though we have very different lives, right? I really identify with these guys. And part of my therapy is to understand that all wounds have a physical side, have a mental side, and have a spiritual side, right? Obviously, these guys have a physical wound. Their legs are busted, their back is broken, whatever, right? Their knees normally. And they have that physical side, and the doctors are working on that. Now, there's also the mental side, that anguish, that panic. What am I going to do? What's going to happen to my career? What's going to happen with my contract? I just bought a $14 million house. Am I going to be able to pay for it? What's going to happen to my family, right? That mental pain is often far more painful than the physical injury, right? And then the spiritual pain, that heart pain, these guys, it's their love, it's their passion. Just like that was my love and
Yeah.
my passion,
Your
right? Playing
identity.
ball. It's who they are, it's how they
Yeah.
define themselves, right? And so that healing, and it's what I get to do now. And it's because of, I look at it as a gift, it's because of this near death experience that I get to sit with people like this, and I get to help them, and I get to heal with them, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Now,
Yeah,
you
it's
never
a
got to
blessing.
be in dancing again after this?
I was determined. I'm a very stubborn person. And the doctors told me that I would probably never be able to walk, and that if I could walk, I would have a very difficult time, and I'd probably have to have my knees replaced by the time, I was 30 and 40 years old, they said, right? So they did all this work in repairing my legs, and it was an experimental surgery. They literally flew 14 doctors from the NFL to actually do this surgery, because it was a rear knee surgery, a back of the knee surgery. So my kneecap was fully intact, but all the bones going into my knee were shattered. So they glued all those bones back together. They pinned them together and glued them back together, right? And that kind of injury is the injury that happens to players' knees on the football field. So they delayed my surgery for 2 weeks. They got all these surgeons together. They did this surgery. It was fully experimental and they did an excellent job. But I was still in tremendous pain. I had bone on bone contact, right? There was just that constant grinding. And so I tried to go back to be a dancer. I was dancing a year afterwards. I was back in class in a year, which was really tremendous, right? And at one point, I was in class, I was taking a master class. I don't know if you guys know what a pirouette is. It's when a dancer turns really fast. I was in a pirouette that had to go into a pirouette to a layout. So you're up tall, you're turning, and then your body drops like that onto one leg and stops in the other. It's like a kick out type of experience. So I was turning, I put my heel down, I dropped my weight down, and I leaned back and did that move, and my knee gave out on me. The bones just kind of crashed into each other, and there was like I could literally feel an electrical spasm happen in my body. My body just went kind of experience, and I collapsed down to the ground. And in that moment, I just laid there for a bit, and the class had to stop, right? All kinds of stuff. And I knew that I could never dance again, no matter how hard I try, no matter what I do. My body is not going to be capable of doing that anymore. And so that was when I was really lost. I was really lost because I was trying to go back to what I could no longer be. Right. And isn't that a metaphor? How many times do we try to go back to the past? How many times, something happens and we just want to go back to the way it was? Well, it's not possible. Stop trying to do that. Look ahead, live in possibility. Right. And that's a big lesson that I've learned. And again, just another thing that I bring to my clients in my mental health therapy practice.
Hmm. Did you know what a near-death experience was when you come back? Like, oh, that's what that was, or was you confused?
I mean, I did to the extent of like 1980s TV,
Okay.
right? I didn't know anybody at the time, but people were just starting to talk about those things in the 80s, right? You
Hmm.
had a lot of men that were dying. There's an AIDS crisis, right? And so you had people that would die and come back. They would, it was becoming a thing that there was more consciousness around. There was a lot of people poo-pooing it and saying all that stuff. But as a kid, I didn't really understand it. I had a vague kind of thought about it. I knew I had died, but I really didn't understand, oh, that's what a near-death experience is. And I still think today it's kind of funny that we call it a near-death experience. It should be called a death experience. We died. It's a death experience,
Or like you said,
right?
you were a ghost. That's how I described my drowning NDE because it was all out of I was a ghost. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
many
And those
people will
experiences
say
I had
that.
afterwards, those experiences that I call the close to death experiences, to me, those are near death experiences because I was near dying. I was near death, but I didn't do it. So I think we have a death experience and then we have a near death experience. That's
So
just
do you think once
English.
we've had one NDE, it's like when we get close,
Yep.
sick? I mean, anything, it's like, boo, very stressed out of body experience.
Yeah. I think it's easier for us to actually go through the death process as well. Like when it is time for me to let go, I think it's going to be easy. I think it's just going to be like, okay, I know how to do this. I've done it before. I've been close to it before. I get it. I don't need to be afraid. It's actually amazing. I get to go to that place of pure love, and I'd like to think, and who knows? I don't know what the reality of the situation will be, but I'd like to think that when the Grim Reaper comes to me for me, I'm gonna be like, yeah, dude, great. Just give me a minute. I just want to say goodbye. Can I call someone? Okay, bye.
Right. That's what
All
I
right, let's
say
go.
too. I just want time to say goodbye. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the fun. I mean, people get so caught up in this whole thing. And I really think there's so much, we humans, we have so much judgment about people. And we have so many of these ideas of like politically or whatever. You're right, I'm wrong, it's this way, no, it's this way. Religion's the same thing. My religion is the right religion, your religion is the wrong religion. Like, we are so petty. We are
And how do
so
we know that?
eh,
How do we know any of this?
exactly. Yeah. If we truly like what I learned watching things like your show is that almost all the time, there are a couple exceptions, but almost all the time, it's an experience of love, right? It's an experience of I chose to come back. Now I was kicked out. At least I felt like I was kicked out. I was told it wasn't my time, and I translated that right as I'm being kicked out, I'm being rejected. I now that I look back at it as an adult, I'm like, no, it just wasn't my time. It just wasn't
Right.
my time. I wasn't being rejected. I was just told you're too early, right? It's not time,
And that opens up a whole can of worms. Like, who decides this?
right? I think ultimately we do. I had things to do. I had life to live. I had things to learn. I love the idea that planet Earth is a place to learn, and that's why we come here. That makes sense to me, right? Everything in this world is learning, to learn to love more, to learn to have faith more, to learn to trust ourselves more, right? The challenge is always to grow. And I think all pain, I don't care if it's physical pain, mental pain, spiritual pain, I don't care if it's addiction, I don't care if it's anxiety, I don't care if it's a tumor, all pain is a call to love, all of it. And we tend to, when something is wrong or bad, right, and we're in pain, we tend to want to beat it up and cut it out and throw it away and drug it and fix it and all that type of stuff. Well, what if we just started to love it? What if the pain that people watching this right now, you're in some sort of pain, right? Even you, I don't know. What if you, instead of being angry that, oh, it's here again, I'm so frustrated, whatever. What if I just said, it's a part of me that's suffering. It doesn't need to be beaten up. It doesn't need to be bullied. I don't, right? I'm bullying it when I say go away and I hate you and I can't stand you and I wish you would, this part of me. What if I just chose to love it? And when I work with my clients and we go to that place and we learn to embrace these parts of us, that's what Billy's about. That's what this book's about. Billy learns to love his anxiety and he learns to work with his anxiety, and his anxiety becomes his friend and his protector, right? It's this part of him that is actually there to support him, right? When he learns to love it, he can do that, right? And so I think the world that we live in is all about that. And John Lennon got it right, man. Love is all there is.
It made me think of the song Sound of Silence. It's, hello,
Yeah.
darkness, my old friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Hmm. I think there's something primal about that music, right? Both those songs that speaks to us on that level, even like that's before my time. And yet, and I'm not a big Beatles fan or whatever, but those words and those songs, Simon and Garfunkel, right? Those words speak to our hearts, they speak to our souls. And that's why they've lasted so long. There's a truth to them.
Like, let it be,
Exactly.
speaking words
Let
of
it be.
wisdom,
Yeah,
it's like those songs that just grab your soul just
they do.
immediately.
Hmm.
You're there.
Hmm. Yeah. And why can't we do that for ourselves? Right? If there's a part of you, the listener, that's suffering, please just pause. Please just take a moment and just say, I'm so sorry to this part. I'm so sorry you're suffering. I'm going to love you no matter what. And just in your mind, hold it in an embrace. Let it feel that word love. Let it feel the vibration of that word, right? I like to think of pouring a golden light. That's for whatever reason to me, this warm, healing sunlight energy, pouring that energy into the parts of me that need that love. And when I do that, I breathe differently. My body calms, right? I can shift my energy and I get to slide into love.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
instead of making it your enemy, make it your friend.
Exactly. It's something you can work with.
Yeah. I've noticed that in times of depression, there's a lot of creativity. And one day I
Yeah.
heard God doesn't give you depression without giving you the creativity. It's like it's your walkway out, it's your ladder out. Because you can get
Yeah.
depressed, well, okay, then get in that creative mode, whatever makes you feel better. I mean, some people are supposed to be drinking alcohol, but whether it's painting, drawing, after my second NDE, I'd lost my twins during that NDE, and I was real depressed, and I started drawing house plans, and it seemed like 5 minutes went by and be 5 hours.
Yeah.
And I started
Exactly.
realizing because it was quiet. It was like in that bright white light, is in that
Hmm.
quiet space. Nobody was there. It's like,
Yeah.
where's everybody at? But there's that quiet space that just allows that creativity to grow.
And
And
there's
it come to
healing.
me one day. I went out to walk with the dog early one morning. It's still dark, and that come to me like God doesn't give us it's depression without a rescue. Creativity is that
Exactly.
rescue. And I turned back around to the house, and my house is huge because every time I get depressed, I draw house plans, and then
Hmm.
I'd have to build those house plans. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that's a lot of depression, because I could see where all of my depression went was
Right.
into creating.
That sounds like a great coloring book. If you could take all those drawings that you have, turn them into a coloring book and say, tell a little bit of your story and say, hey, this is one of the ways that I was able to heal myself and I want to share it with you. That would be a fun little book to publish.
That's
And
neat.
depression is a gift in many ways. It stops us. It asks us to refocus, right? It says, hey, it's time to take care of yourself. It's time to go in. It's time to be quiet. It's time to get rid of all the outside distraction and just irritations. It's time to just sit and be. And I love the example of Adele. Like, I'd love to meet her one day. But every one of her songs is really about comes from a place of pain, comes from a place of sadness, of hurt, of relationship, of rejection, of losing your way. Like all that creativity that comes out of that is
Yeah,
remarkable, right? So
yeah,
channel that energy.
yeah. It's such a gift to have that kind of artistic, to be able to write a song like that.
Absolutely. Find a way. Maybe it's something creative. Maybe it's just going out and hitting the gym. Maybe it's swimming in the ocean. Creativity can be anything from drawing to how you drive to work. You can be creative in what routes you take, what streets you take. I like to say, I had a woman who was saying she hated her life and she was so upset, and it's the same thing, and she has to make pancakes for her kids, and there's no room for creativity. And I said, well, what if you made the pancakes like flowers or daisies? What if you made a pancake like Mickey Mouse? And she's like, I never thought of that. And I said, well, that's creativity right there,
Yeah,
right? How do you make your pancakes?
yeah. I work best from that place. Like I can't sit down and plan anything. I just got to jump in and start doing it and let it happen and then see what's at the end of the day. What did I do?
Right.
That's
So
how
that
mine
openness,
works. I
yeah,
can't sit
that
down and
openness is
plan and tell you,
creativity.
yeah.
Beautiful. That's great. And to know how you work is brilliant. That's awesome. It's good to know yourself.
Yeah, my husband said, "No, do you want this there? Do you want this?" I was like, "I just got to jump in and just start doing it, and then when it's done, that's how I want it."
Absolutely.
So, well, it's been very interesting. Is there anything else that did you want to talk about your books or how you went from
Sure.
there to where you're at now? Or
Well, it was a long process. Obviously, like I said, this is my near death experience, not the close to death experiences. Those experiences happened over a few times over several decades, right? The near death experience was 40 years ago, and it really launched me into my own healing and having to heal myself. The doctors were great about putting my knee back together, but outside of that, they had no idea what to do with me. They didn't know what to do with my broken heart. They didn't know what to do with my panicking brain, my anxiety, depression filled brain. They didn't know what to do. And they would say, well, try this drug, it might help. I wasn't interested in might help. I just wasn't interested. And they'd say, try this surgery, it might help. Well, I wasn't interested in maybe getting myself cut open again in a way that might be able to heal me. I wasn't interested. So I stumbled into all kinds of holistic healing practices, right? Some were great, some were weird, some were amazing, right? And it really brought me to this place. I was able to get a master's degree in what's called consciousness studies, which is the study of science combined with theology. So it's literally a science and religion degree. I studied everything from quantum theory and Schrodinger's cat and the fifth dimension to Christian mysticism and Buddhism and Zoroastrianism and Hinduism and stuff like that. And I got my certificates in hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming and medical imagery and spiritual counseling and stuff of that sort. And so that's what I do. So now for 19 years, I've been working as a therapist, and I was blessed to be able to write that first book, which, as I was telling you, I wrote that first book just for my clients and got published with Simon and Schuster. I wasn't even trying to get it published, and it was just one of those things. It was meant to be. And Simon and Schuster found it, bought it from me, and published it. And I just wrote my second book right here, Billy and the Anxiety Monster. I have a coloring book version of this that's going to come out. And then my fourth book, I guess that would be, is called When Happiness is Work, How to Love Your Depression and Heal. Right. And so it's a 30-day guide for loving and healing depression. So
Awesome.
that's the gift. That's the gold in the garbage. That's the experience of the garbage of how somebody did what they did to me and how I had to learn how to love them and heal myself. That's the sort of garbage, that happened. And the healing is the gold. And I get to share that healing. And I am so blessed. Like I love my life. I am so grateful. I would not change a thing.
I love that. I'm
Yeah,
curious with the anxiety. I know you had anxiety and you really struggled. Did you ever have out of body experiences in your,
I did.
did
Yeah,
you?
I did. Sure. Where I'm so anxious that you just bypass. Like I call it spiritual bypassing, but it's a disconnection, right? I'm not present. I'm not there. I don't remember certain things, even though I know they happened. I don't have a memory of them because I was so disassociated, right? Pain was a big dissociative experience for me. I was working up in the Bay Area at one time, and I was had a friend in town. I was the visitor, and they were living there, and they said, meet me at this restaurant. And I remember waiting in the restaurant bar, and I was just leaning against the wall, and some guy came up to me and said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, like what? Why are you talking to me? Why are you asking me if I'm okay?" Right? And he's like, yeah, I said that to him, and he said, "You're crying." I, I I was so disassociated. I was in such a high level of pain that in order to deal with the pain, I had to disassociate from my body. And I was like touching my face, and I wasn't just a little tear. I was sobbing. Like there was tears flowing down my face. And I did not realize, right? That's not a healthy way to be. Right?
Do you have to
So
avoid like
yeah.
coffee, like caffeine and sugar to help with anxiety?
Oh, people do that all the time. Yeah, people turn to all kinds of stuff. People turn to drugs or they turn to
But I mean, do
alcohol.
you have to stay away from it? Does that help relieve?
Oh, do I have to stay away from it? Those were never my demons.
Okay.
No, I didn't. I know people that do. My clients, right? There's certain things that we do. I think the core of addiction is avoidant behavior. I don't want to feel that, so I'm going to avoid it. I'm going to even like going taking a yoga class is great, but if I'm taking that yoga class as a way to avoid feeling my pain, I'm ignoring, I'm suppressing it, then the yoga class is great. Going to your church or going wherever you're going, that's great. But if you're avoiding, and that's what that's doing for you, it doesn't matter what the behavior is, you're just prolonging your pain.
I wonder if some people do that with meditation because they want to
Absolutely.
feel nothing. They want to think nothing. I don't
Absolutely.
get that really.
Yeah, it's the same with alcohol. It's literally the same experience. It's a different way of doing it, right? But it's avoided. I don't want to feel it. In my world, we call that a spiritual bypass, right?
Huh.
It's doing something spiritual to avoid dealing with the stuff. That's the same as somebody with a drinking problem going to the bar to avoid their feelings. Same thing.
I wondered
Mhm.
that if you had out of bodies with anxiety because I have a little with
Sure.
anxiety. I noticed it started out job interviews.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
start. I used to have no trouble with job interviews, but I started
right.
having a lot of trouble with anxiety. And I noticed it would get to the point where I feel like I'm looking at myself thinking, shut up, stop talking. Don't tell
Yeah,
all that personal stuff, you know?
yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah.
she won't shut up. It felt like split like that. Like I had lost control because I used to hold everything in. Everybody's, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're so professional. You're so good under
Mm-hmm.
pressure. I'm like, huh,
Mm-hmm.
got you awful, don't I?
Yeah,
Because
it's like, no, I'm not. I'm just shoving it all down.
oh man, I had it shoved in tight. And so
Yeah,
when more I started to relax, the more anxiety I had
yeah,
because this
yeah,
didn't
because
feel
it's coming out.
normal. I'm
Hmm.
talking.
Yeah.
Stop talking.
I think, yeah, exactly. I like to call that the healing hangover when you start the healing work. And oftentimes the pain gets worse, right? Because you're letting it out. You're detoxing, you're letting it come to the surface. And so, yeah, but a lot of times what that does is it scares people to go back to the avoidant behavior, right? Oh my God, it's never going to stop. It'll stop. Trust me, it'll stop.
And
Yeah.
us spiritual people, I don't know what else to use word to use, so I'll just use that because don't
Sure.
sound right. But before you realize you're spiritual, or you just talking about spiritual stuff,
Yeah.
and you didn't before, it feels really scary coming
Exactly.
out. And
Mhm.
when I started talking about my NDE, I've always said, I bet that's what gays feel like coming out of the closet because
Totally.
I didn't want anybody to know I had this. I didn't want to talk about it. I asked my kids if it was okay if I go to a IONS group to talk about my NDE. Like, Mom, do what you got to do. I'm like,
Yeah,
but will it embarrass you? Like
absolutely.
they don't care. And I'm like,
Mm-mm.
because I was, as investigator and I was social worker and all these things, and now I'm going to
Mhm.
be talking crazy, but it's my
And that's the
truth.
thing, it's not. It's actually more real. That experience of your NDE, my NDE,
Mm.
is more real many times than this physical world, right? That experience is has far more of an impact and a feeling, a knowingness than the physical life that I'm in. And we all are. We all have the spiritual side. Just a lot of us are afraid of it and we shove it down.
And now that I have a podcast and I can talk about it all the time, but there's a lot of people I can't, family, that I can't.
Mhm.
Not that they don't like it, it's just they don't want to think of it. They don't know how to communicate about it. Like
Mhm.
leave it in your podcast, Mom, or whatever. My husband's like, I know he's getting tired of hearing it. But and so I feel so lonely and isolated
Yeah.
when I can't talk about it. So
Mhm.
we got to talk about these other things that I don't care about.
So that's avoidant behavior. And you're not doing it to yourself, so that's good, but you're doing it to other people. I'm just going to encourage you to keep talking about it. If
Okay.
it makes them uncomfortable, it's not a bad uncomfortable, right? It's not like you're being cruel or mean or, doing something harmful to them. You're just sharing your own life experience. And as long as it just keeps coming from that, you never know what doors will open and when somebody actually needs to hear something.
Yeah.
So keep being
Well,
yourself.
way I try to do it more is okay, this is my time to be a listener instead of a talker.
Sure.
So
Mhm.
I'll put on that hat. I'll put on my listener hat. So all right. Do you want me to put in your website in the description and you got your
Sure.
books
I'd
on
love that.
there? How
Yeah.
about your
People can find,
email? Do you want your email?
yeah, they can email me right
Okay.
through my sites and social media if they want to connect with me. So my website is convergencehealing.com. That's my brand. So my first book right here was called Convergence Healing, Healing Pain with Energetic Love. And that's how I go about everything. So I'm on Instagram, Convergence Healing. I'm on Facebook, Convergence Healing. I'm on Twitter, Convergence Healing. Everybody wants to contact me. They can go to my website. They can go to any of those social medias. They can slide into my DMs, as the kids say, and send me a message right through there. Mhm.
As we were talking earlier, I said you remind me of Robin Williams, and you say you get that a lot.
I do, yeah.
And so that's a good
I grew up in
person
the
to
Bay Area, and that's where Robin Williams did. So I
really.
used to get it my whole life. I've gotten, you're a
Okay.
lot like Robin Williams. Yeah, I know. Thank you very much.
Okay. Maybe you could play him in a movie someday about Robin Williams'
Right?
life. You'd say,
Oh,
hey,
I
right
would love
here.
that. I could do his biography.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you. It's very nice meeting you.
Great to meet you. I really am thankful for this opportunity to share my story. And I trust that someone needs to hear it and someone's going to get that love. So I'm putting that love out right now.
Okay. Good luck to you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
You too.